2, 3, 4.
Rev up your engines!
Well, here we go. Necessity is the mother of invention. Ford Motor Company is thinking about experimenting with wristbands that if you get closer than 6 feet, they start buzzing. So when they get their factory production back up, the people won't get too close together. It'll force them apart. Now they're going to do thermal temperature, be checking the people as they come in and out, and it'll keep them more than 6 feet apart. They're going to try a bunch of stuff. Who knows? Maybe the Germans will pick up on Volkswagen's doing. I don't know. Nobody's talked about what Volkswagen's doing. The other day, they reopened some of their factories in Europe, so we'll see how it works for them. And they got a pilot program that they're putting in for their ventilator factory that's making the ventilators. So they can test it all out in small scale, then when they get their big factories going, they can try that out. Ford isn't going to be selling the new Ford Focus RS. The sporty car, they sold it in Europe, but they say they're not going to be bringing it in the United States. Now, I found it kind of interesting because Ford said that they were only going to be making the Mustang. That's the only car, and the rest are all going to be trucks and SUVs. But strangely enough, at the Houston Auto Show, which made it in before this pandemic, there was one sitting there. And I said, what the heck's going on? What's it doing on your floor? And even the guys who work for Ford said, I don't know. They said they weren't going to be making those things, but there's one sitting right there. Ford says the reason they're not going to sell it in the United States is because that RS has a hybrid drivetrain. It costs a lot of money to make. It's a low-volume car anyway. They said it would not be cost-effective to bring the thing into the United States. Now, they had to make it hybrid and all that stuff to pass these European standards on new cars. So they experimented there, but they said they're not going to be bringing it in the United States. So really, it seems that Ford is going more to trucks and SUVs, and the Mustang will be their only real car that they're going to sell. Do the SUV and truck market instead. But they kept the Focus RS for the Europeans. Interesting, you know? I mean, it was an American company, started in Detroit. You'd think they'd be putting their hottest things over here. Well, they left that one only in Europe. Danimal91 says, Scotty, they say most engine wear occurs during warm-up. Why don't they have some kind of a pre-lube system so it doesn't wear out? Good question, but I mean, there's a simple answer. It's called cheapness. They don't want to spend more money building cars, and they really don't have an interest in making cars that would last forever. It is a minimal amount of wear, and yes, if you were a mad scientist, you could set up some kind of oiling system in your car. You'd push a button, and an electric pump could pump oil throughout the engine, and then when you start it'll all be pre-lubed. But of course, you know, they don't want things to last forever. They want to sell you stuff. So it's such minimal wear that, you know, it isn't affecting their warranty or anything, so they don't care. But yes, if you were a mad scientist and you wanted your car to last as long as possible, you could put some kind of a pre-lube system in to lubricate it before the engine was started, and it would actually work. It'd be pretty complicated because you'd have to hook it up to the oil system and have a way that it would pressurize it, but then it wouldn't affect the other stuff when it starts off. We'd have kind of a one-way shut-off valve or something. But it could be done if you wanted to go that far. Minato JP says, Scotty, what do you think of this new Toyota Avalon TRD 2020? Well, if you got a ton of money and you want a nice, fast, luxurious vehicle, go ahead and buy it. Me, I'm too cheap. I'll buy one 10 years from now if I need a car and I can find a good one that's been taken care of. They're very expensive. When I went to the auto show a few months ago here in Houston, geez, I was amazed at the price of vehicles there. It just really shocked me. I mean, some of those vehicles were what I pay for this house that I'm living in. Now, I did buy the house 40-something years ago, but still, I won't pay that kind of money. They're great vehicles, but that kind of money, hey, Scotty waits until they're a few years old. People need money. They're selling a used car. Then I'll buy the thing. I'm never going to buy new anything. I like motorcycles. Did I ever buy a new motorcycle? No. You can get them dirt cheap used. I'll never spend money on a new vehicle because I'm too cheap. And I know how to save money and buy good vehicles that still have a lot of life left in them. Benny Boy 10 says, hey, Scotty, when I drive my car and I step on the brakes, I can hear it clattering. All right, well, what you want to check is two things. One, you want to just pull the wheels off and check the brakes. Make sure they're not worn out. Sometimes bolts that hold the calipers on get loose and then they're clatter around. Make sure everything's solid. But it isn't necessarily your brakes. Let's say you've got worn tie rods. You hit the brakes, it'll clatter because there's wear. Ball joints, it'll clatter because there's wear. If your struts, and especially the top, the strut mount is worn, when you hit the brakes, it strains it and it'll clatter. There's a lot of stuff that can clatter when you hit the brakes. But of course, start by pulling the wheels off, checking the brake system. Maybe a bolt's loose. Maybe they're just flat worn out. always start at the simple, obvious things you can see with your eyes, fix them. Because if it's not that, then you got to start checking stuff. Are the ball joints worn? Are the tie rods? Is the strut mount? If you jack it up in the air and you see the strut moves down, that means the mount on the top's broken and it's falling down. A lot of stuff can do it, but start simple by checking the brake system. Nick 20S says, going cheap seems to be the new normal. Chevy Corvettes have cracked wheels. Mine are cracked. And I'm joining this lawsuit that says the rims crack and bend, leaks and blowouts. 2015 to present Corvettes. The rims are made of a cheaper cast material rather than a forged material, and they're having problems. What do you think of that? Well, I've been warning people not to buy GM products for quite some time, and it just is amazing. They charge so much money for those cars, and yet they don't want to make them correctly and forge the wheels, which is strong forging. They're just cast. And of course, when you cast things, there's often imperfections in the casting, and then wham, you got problems. All this money for the cars, and they're even cheapening out how they make the wheels. You'd think, oh, I'm paying all this money for a car, it's made great. No, they're still making them cheaper. They just want to make more profit. Like I always say, use your head, don't buy junk. You know it's junk? Don't buy one. You don't have to worry about the wheels cracking if you don't buy that car. If you don't buy one, buy aftermarket rims from a company that makes quality rims. Kind of defeats the purpose of buying an expensive car than having to buy rims that work with it, though. Stevens Forget-Me-Not says, got an '05 Honda Accord. It vibrates like mad at idle with the AC on or off. I've tried all kinds of things, new spark plugs, motor mounts, but it still vibrates. Help. I had one like that years ago, and it drove me nuts. I kept trying all the stuff I could find. I couldn't find anything wrong. I didn't put motor mounts on because I jacked up the motor with my jack and saw that they were solid and they weren't ripped or torn. On that vehicle, there's a little TSB that Honda has it for, a technical service. The exhaust system main hanger near the motor that it hangs on broken, and it was the stupid exhaust vibrating. So go under there and you look. As old as that thing is, you probably see that rubber is all rotten from the heat, and if you got any oil leaks, oil gets on it, then it rots and the heat makes it come apart even faster. The main hanger for the exhaust, big old rubber thing. Check it. You'll probably see that that's broken. That's a known problem in those things as they age. Lee Ezra 0315 says, Scotty, do you think this used car is worth buying? 2016 Mazda 3, 42,000 miles for $7,900. 4 cylinders, automatic, front wheel drive. It's not that many miles. You gave Canadian dollars too, so cars cost more there. Have a mechanic check it out. And if he checks it out and says it's a good car, it could be a decent car. You pay more for cars there. That's just the way it is. If somebody brought me a 4-year-old Mazda with 42,000 miles on it here in Houston, I could probably pick that thing up for $4 or $5 grand all day long. But things cost more in Canada. Do have a mechanic check it out. Make sure it doesn't have any problems. And it could be a decent car. I mean, I know what things cost in Toronto. It's an expensive city. So if a mechanic okays it, hey, it could be a decent car. I mean, I'd look for a Toyota or Honda myself. But then you're going to pay even more for them. Ned says, my '07 Grand Marquis doesn't have a cabin air filter. Now, they want a bunch of money for a kit. Could I just get some kind of fine mesh screen, build my own? Sure, you can do anything you want. Just realize that if you make something, you want to make it solid. And you want to make it so it doesn't get sucked in and hit the fan, because then you turn the fan on, we hit the fan, rub the fan, wear the fan out. So if you're going to use some kind of mesh, I would advise making it just the right size, and then on the side that's away from the fan motor, epoxy in dowel rods or something, so it keeps the mesh from sagging down, because you wouldn't want to touch in the fan. But, you know, you can put all kinds of stuff in there yourself. It's not rocket science. It's just an intake. You could even cut your own. You could do that mesh and you could cut your own filter out of, like, filter for a house. Those whole house furnace filters, make 10 of these little ones for your car. And as they get dirty, just cut another one and stick that on top of the mesh. It's an interesting idea. Manxrel says, Scotty got an '08 Volvo XC 3.2 V6 with 210,000 miles. A small oil leak between the engine and the gearbox. Mechanic says it's small and I can live with it, since there's no other leaks. How often should I check the oil level, and what should I look for? Well, you know, just check it every week. It's no big deal. Do it when the engine's been sitting all night, and you'll make sure it's all drained so you got the correct level. You probably got a rear main seal oil leak. In that case, do what I've been telling people to do for years. You can get it at Amazon. You can buy some AT205 Reseal. It's a liquid polymer in a bottle. Pour it in the engine oil right after you change the oil. It rejuvenates rubber seals, and if it stops leaking, it could stop it entirely. Then every time you change the oil, you just add another bottle of it after you change the oil. Works better with clean oil. He's right. You'd have to pull the transmission off the car, and it's not a cheap job on one of those Volvos, especially if it's all-wheel drive. It's an awful lot of work. And it does work quite well, that AT205 Reseal.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.